This meeting is being recorded.
Hi guys, come on in. I want you to find a seat at the table. There's a bin of materials. I need 3 people to a bin, so only 3 people to each table with supplies. Okay, so today we're gonna have a Makerspace. Who's up for being creative and building things? I think you guys need to mute your microphones because I'm getting a lot of feedback on my side, if you could do that. So we're gonna get started. Today we're gonna read Iggy Peck, Architect. How many of you have read this before? Does it look familiar? Even if you have read it, it's okay because it's such a good story. I reread it all the time to my kids, and I know you'll find different things in the illustrations and in the words. And then we're going to complete a Makerspace challenge, kind of like what Iggy does when he's building his bridge. So Iggy Peck is an architect, and the job of an architect is somebody who designs buildings. Homes, tall buildings, short buildings. Architects have a passion for building that kind of material with that kind of structure. But sometimes you hear about things like Rosie Revere engineer, and an engineer is a person who designs and or builds more things than just buildings. It could be engines, it could be machines, it could be other structures, and they have to trial and error a lot. The first time they build something isn't their first idea. They have to practice and fail and try again until they come up with something that's actually going to be structurally sound, not fall down on anybody or have any other problems. So let's read Iggy Peck, Architect. I wanted everybody to have a really good view, so I went ahead and put the pictures on the screen to make it a little bit easier.
Iggy Peck, Architect. Written by Andrea Betty, illustrated by David Roberts. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. Gracious Ignatius, his mother exclaimed, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. But her smile faded fast as light wind blew past, and she realized those diapers weren't clean. Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks. But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples and temples from modeling clay. Iggy's really good at using the resources that he has laying around, like the peaches, the diapers, the modeling clay. There's even some pencils if you look really close. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built a St. Louis arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade, when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer, and on the first day she had this to say, we do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings, ancient or new. She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. Now, that might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. Oh no. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that above all, one ought to avoid them. No ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. You, Iggy Peck, Your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howell? No, ma'am, Iggy said, and he lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now second grade was a bore. If you look close in this picture, Iggy's way in the back of the line, and he looks so sad, like he doesn't want to be part of the group. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream, but they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed, and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. We're trapped here. Oh my, alas, kids, goodbye. Her eyeballs rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted and not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. There's some great details in the picture. If you look, they're all working together. They're using the resources they have at hand on the island, and they're hatching plans. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces. And on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots, and strings, roll-ups, and things, some of which should not be mentioned, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious ridge dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Look how happy she is to walk across that bridge. She's even missing a shoe. Now every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker in t-shirts and sneakers talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course he's the guy who builds towers from pie, that brilliant young man, Iggy Peck.
So that is still one of my favorite books. What resources did Iggy and his class have to build the bridge? You can look at the picture if you can't remember. I see shoestrings. Anybody else? Underwear. He's got some sticks, even a fruit roll-up. He used whatever they had. I see rulers. Nobody is wearing shoes anymore, hardly. They all gave up their shoes to build the suspension bridge, and they all look so proud of themselves. So in the beginning, how did Miss Lila Greer feel towards architecture? Did she like architecture and building? Not so much, did she? She had a bad experience. She had a really bad experience, and she's still scared. Isn't that funny that even grown-ups can have bad experiences and be scared like that? So how did the teacher's attitude change, though, towards architecture by the end of the story? Yeah, it totally changed. She was so inspired by Iggy and his studying and passion for architecture that she started letting him teach the class all sorts of different architectural structures. Okay, I want you guys now to imagine that you are in Miss Lila Greer's 2nd grade class, and you're gonna help Iggy build a bridge to get his class off the island. Do you think you can do it? I think you can do it. Now, what you have, what are your resources on your island? That's your table. on your island are what's in your bin, so you can see those on the screen. And you are going to create a 12-inch bridge that will support Iggy for 10 seconds. Oh, and Iggy today, since we don't have a little Iggy, is a little T-Rex. So this is your Iggy, and he has to make it across the bridge without falling in the river. That's your challenge. For 10 seconds, he has to stand on the bridge, 10 whole seconds. And you can only use the material in your bin, not your neighbor's bin. You can't share. Even if you have extra, you can't share. Some resources that might help you in your building challenge. The first one is the poster behind me of bridges. And I thought you might want to see different types of bridges that often engineers will build. You might have an arch, a beam, a suspension, a cable stay, or a truss. Which one did Iggy build? Yeah, the suspension one. And suspensions are really popular, as we'll see. The second one, sometimes it's kind of hard to use cardboard and we don't always know how to bend it or put it together in different ways. I thought it would be helpful if I put together this poster behind me, and it has different ways to bend cardboard. So like the first one, you cut it and then bend it into flanges, which are like little feet. Or on the L brace, you can sort of either bend it into an L, or you can tape two pieces together into an L, and you have masking tape on your table. Other times you can slot it, like make two cuts and then stick them together. This is a really sturdy way to support something. And I also like these brass fasteners. You can punch a hole through the two pieces and then stick the brass fastener through it. You have that in your bins. Every time that we have a makerspace, we go through a design process. And that's not just in my library. That is in all designers, every engineer, every architect, any sort of maker, tinker, building person is going to go through this process. So the first step is the ask step. What's the problem? Today's problem is we're stuck on an island and we got to build a bridge. Then you're going to go through the imagine phase, which is brainstorming ideas with your group. You're in groups of 3. And then the planning phase, where you draw a little sketch, a little diagram. Sometimes you draw a diagram, and then when you're building, it doesn't work out, and you just throw away the diagram. That's okay. Real scientists do that. Real engineers do that all the time. But you have to have an idea, and you have to have a plan and a direction with your group. And then you'll go through to the number 4, the create phase. That's the building. That's the fun stuff, right? Is it going to work? Is it not? Can you make it bend in the right way? And then afterwards, we want to improve our design. Nothing ever works perfect, and everything can get better. We're always learning from our mistakes. Some bridges are not going to hold up, and others will. And then the ask phase, we might go right back and rebuild it, especially if we really need to build this bridge. Let's see. Okay, design process. We are on step 2 and 3. We're in groups of 3 already. So 2 and 3, you have this really cool grid paper, just like Iggy Peck, and it's got the lines on it because you are real designers right now. You are going to have 2 minutes with your group to imagine what you want and plan it out and draw a little picture. You will not get into your bin. You can look in the bin, but don't take things out. Don't start building. Building is step 4. We're on step 2 and 3. And 2 minutes starts now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, guys, pencils down. I hope everybody has a plan. I hope you guys agreed on it within your group. Not all the time do we agree with each other, but we still need to work together. And I think we're ready to build. Are you ready to dump out your bin and start building? Okay, 15 minutes starts now. Go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, stop. I think I see a lot of great bridges, but can those bridges support Mr. Iggy Peck? 10 seconds. We're going to go around the room. We're going to check out everybody's bridge and their Iggy, because everybody has a little bit different model. Once you put the model on, we will all start counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. What happens if your bridge collapses? Is it the end of the world? No, we'll just start the design process again. You'll learn from your mistakes and you'll start again. In the real world, that's what you do. You don't get it right the first time. If somebody's bridge does hold Iggy for 10 seconds, what are we going to do, class? We're going to celebrate. We're all going to clap and we're going to be happy for them. No mean words. Okay, are we ready, group one? Put Iggy on there. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're at the last step of the design process, the improve part. So let's just sort of sit back and think about what could we do different? Are all of your bridges the same? Did you all choose the same materials? Did you all have the same materials? Oh yeah, you did. But some of you did different materials. So no, they're not all the same. Is that okay? Yeah, all of our brains work different ways and we might come up with different solutions for the same problem. What would you do different next time to build a stronger bridge? You might use a different material. You might double up the material, maybe to make it stronger. Could you support your bridge better? Maybe put something in the middle of your bridge. That might do it. Oh, yeah, maybe you don't use straws for support next time. I can see that. What building material worked best for you? What did you like best? I like the cardboard too. Did you know that sometimes people do this challenge in a classroom and all they get is spaghetti, dry, hard spaghetti, and they're supposed to like glue it together and make a bridge. I still don't even know how that works, but they make it work, and you can go on YouTube and you can look it up and see other people and the way that they build bridges in their class. Did your group members always understand your vision? Sometimes it's really hard to get your idea into somebody else's head. And sometimes when you're working with somebody, you don't understand. Even if they drew it out, you don't always understand. And is that okay? Yeah, it's okay, but we try to get along if we're in the same group. Okay, this is my favorite. So I have this big display, and it's got the posters that I showed you before, and it has a whole bunch of books that extend this learning. So the first one is, if you liked Iggy Peck Architect, then you're probably going to like Roberto the Insect Architect. This is also one of my favorite for different reasons. And Roberto is a termite. And when he eats breakfast in the morning, what do termites eat? They eat wood. What are houses built out of? Wood. So his family is all sitting down and eating their wood breakfast, and Roberto is playing with his breakfast, building all sorts of houses, and that's his passion. So he goes to the big city to build houses, and it's his story of becoming an architect, even though he's really a termite. And this would be a really cool Makers Challenge also, that we could build houses instead of bridges. That might be something we do another day. But I totally think you should check out this book, read it to your brother and sister. They'll love it. Next one is a true story of a real man, and it's called Pop, the Invention of Bubblegum. How many of you like bubblegum? How many of you do not chew it at school, I hope? And if this is a true story, what section of my library would you find it in? Which section would you find it in? That's right, nonfiction. So this is the story of an accountant, and an accountant's job is numbers, but he worked at a bubblegum factory, but the bubblegum wasn't very good, and the company was about to go out of business, and he ended up making bubblegum. He went down the hall to work with the scientists to invent a better bubblegum. And it's kind of his design process, just like we went through a design process. He went through a design process to build bubblegum. So I really like that one. And this one, if you want to learn more about bridges, this is the book for you. It's called Secret Engineer and How Emily Roebling Built the Brooklyn Bridge. The story is that Emily's husband was a famous bridge builder. His whole family was. And they got the contract to build the Brooklyn Bridge. They started the bridge, and somewhere along the beginning, her husband got very sick and could not get out of bed. So Emily had to be the person in charge, go to the meetings, tell her, make sure the bridge was built properly, and keep the design process going. But she wasn't an engineer, so she had to teach herself engineering. And her husband helped a little bit, but he was still very, very sick. So for 10 years, she kept the secret that she was really the engineer behind building the Brooklyn Bridge. And the Brooklyn Bridge is still standing. We still drive over it. This book tells you lots about bridge building, and it was fascinating. There's lots of good details. I think that you should take this home and read it to your parents, because even grown-ups would find this very, very interesting. And on top of it, she was a woman in the 1870s, 1880s, this story takes place, and they didn't really let women run major companies like that. So this is a pretty cool story about a secret engineer woman. And of course, all of Miss Andrea Betty's books are amazing. So if you were looking at Iggy Peck in the class, in his second grade class, other people in his class were Rosie Revere and Ada Twist, and they both have their own books. In a couple of months, there's going to be a fourth book from this classroom. And I think that you're going to, if you liked Iggy, you'll like the rest of the class too. Part of my lesson plan is that after you leave my library, in your classroom docs that your teacher has, you will be assigned a hyperdoc from me in your class. You don't have to come back to the library to do it. You can do it on your iPad or your Chromebook in your class whenever you get some extra time, or maybe she will assign some time to do it. And you are going to do a Makerspace extension challenge. Let's see how much time we got. We're good. And let's go to our Google Doc, and I'll show you what it looks like. So the first thing that you're going to do when you go to your class is, it'll load in a second, is watch this really cool video on suspension bridges from SciShow Kids. And it's not very long, it's about 5 minutes. And it's on bridge design. So remember that chart that I have behind me? And it has all the different types of bridges and what they're good for. And in the video, they're going to tell you what they're good for, what makes them strong, how you design a strong bridge. So this will actually help you on the next challenge when we build anything, not just bridges. You'll get a little smarter. Then I want you to answer just 2 questions about the video. After that, the third question is going to make you go visit our library catalog, but you're not coming to the library to do it. Did you know you can check out our library catalog anywhere you have internet? You can look at home. You can say, hey, is that book at the library? And you can look at home. You can look in your classroom, or you can come to the library and look it up. So in this case, you're not coming to the library. You're going to look it up in your classroom. And your challenge is to find 2 books that we have in our library that could be about bridges, architecture, or any sort of design process that you find interesting. And I will be able to check all your grades from this. Okay, let's go back to this. And finally, I hope that you come back to my Makerspace in the library on your own time to play a really cool game called Polybridge. And Polybridge is an app for iPads, for phones, or if you have a Nintendo Switch, you can buy it for the Nintendo Switch. It does cost a little bit of money, so I can only put it on 6 of my iPads. So there's a special table over there in the corner, and it has the loaded games on the iPads. So the reason I love this is because it's a bridge building simulator, and it has 100 levels. I don't think you're going to beat it this month, but maybe, I don't know. You can definitely do it at home. You just have to pay a couple dollars for it. Ask your mom first. And you build the bridge virtually, and if you didn't make it sound, if you didn't build it strong, your car is going to fall back in the water, just like our activity. So you can get a little smarter with it that way too, and it gets harder and harder. You can even build loop-de-loop bridges, all sorts of things. This will be available before school, or if you come with the Makerspace wristband, then you can come do that during class, and that's just saying that your teacher knows you're here to do that for a little bit. And we're going to clean up now. I would like to see your bridges for a little bit. So I'm going to keep your bridges on top of the shelves for the next 2 weeks. So if you bring your mom in the morning or something like that, you're welcome to show them, or you can show your friends. And I would like to give you 1 minute to clean up your space and then come back to the table. So check your floor, make sure all your little bits are thrown away, and make sure all the good bits of your materials for the bins are put in the bins. You have 1 minute cleanup, and then come back to your seat. Go. Okay, thank you, everybody. Now, you should have green stickies. Find your green sticky note. Everybody gets one. And these are your exit tickets today. I have a Makerspace tree on the wall, and I want you to complete my exit ticket and put your leaf, your green sticky leaf, onto my tree. Now, this is what you're going to write on the leaf. The resource that worked best for building my bridge was, maybe you loved cardboard. Maybe you liked straws and masking tape. That's fine too. Just tell me, let's be able to see what everybody liked the best at the end. Might be similar, might be different. Let's find out. Once you have stuck your sticky on my tree, I'd like you to line up for your teacher. Thank you. Go. And that's it.